The Texaco sign flickered against the black sky when I rolled in. One of those old metal jobs that hummed louder than it glowed. My Ford pickup, more rust than metal by that point, coughed twice bare, settling into silence. $11 sat in my wallet. 3 5s and 4 1s, all crumpled from living in my back pocket for the past week. I killed the engine and sat there. The station squatted alone in the darkness. Nothing around it but scrub and empty highway. No other buildings, no houses, just that white concrete box with 2 pumps out front and a handwritten sign in the window that read, "Help Wanted," in block letters, black marker on cardboard. My hands stayed on the wheel. Couldn't remember it last time I'd eaten anything besides gas station jerky and those packages of peanut butter crackers that taste like salted cardboard. 3 days. 4. Time had gotten slippery somewhere between Van Horn and here. The gas gauge read empty. Had read empty for the last 20 miles. I got out, my knees popped when I stood 42 years old and my body already making waz. Like a house settling, the night air hit me cold. That desert cold that comes on fast once the sun drops. January in West Texas. I'd left my jacket somewhere. Couldn't remember where. Boots scraped on concrete as I walked toward the door. Through the window, I could see fluorescent lights washing everything in that blue-white glow. That makes people look dead. No customers inside, just rows of shelves, and a counter with a register. A woman stood behind that counter. She watched me come in without changing her expression. 60, some, maybe older. Hard to tell with dessert people. The sun bakes age into them until they all look ancient. 5 at most, wiry build, skin the color and texture of old leather left too long in a barn. Her hair was black, stir with gray pulled back so tight it looked painful. Dark eyes that didn't blink much. "Help you," she said. Not a question. The window? Do you asking or telling? Asking. My voice came out RO. Hadn't talked to anyone in days. Job still open? She looked me over. Took her time with it. Started at my boots. Scuffed brown Carolinas with the left sole starting to separate. Then up my jeans that hadn't been washed in 2 weeks. My flannel shirt with the oil stains on the sleeve from the last construction job. My face that I knew looked hollow and gray. "You're running from something?" She said. "No, ma'am. Running to something then." "No, ma'am." She nodded once. "That'll do. Name's Donna Jensen. Been managing this station since '87. The way she said it sounded practiced. Like she'd told people that same fact 100 times. And it meant something I didn't understand yet. Mark Dennis Yaget. References, Mark Dennis. "No, ma'am. My Vecca had a driver's license somewhere. Wallet? Probably." "Yes, ma'am. Doni Tosia." She reached under the counter and pulled out a key ring. 2 keys on it, both brass, both old. Overnight shift, 9 at night to 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 days a week, $150 cash per week. Plus, you can sleep in the back room. No benefits, no questions, $150, $25 a day, less than $3 an hour for a 9-hour shift. I took the keys, her eye stayed on my face, waiting for something. A question maybe, or an objection to the pay. I didn't give her either. "You got a place to stay?" she asked. "Truck? Back rooms? Got a cot? Bathroom with a shower? Not much else? But it's warm." She gestured toward a door behind the counter. "Overnight customers can be particular. Follow the rules and you'll be fine." "What rules?" "I'll go over them tomorrow. First night, you just watch. See how it's done?" She glanced at the clock. On the wall, one of those around industrial jobs with a white face and black numbers. 8:43. "You eatin'?" "Yes, ma'am. Like him easy. Always did when it came to admitting and needed something." Donna's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "Roller Grill's got hot dogs. Help yourself on the house tonight." My stomach clenched at the mention of food. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." She moved out from behind the counter and I saw she wore cowboy boots. The worn kind with the heels ground down, uneven. Walked with a slight limp favoring her right leg. She went to the coffee station and poured herself a cup from a pot that looked like it had been sitting there since morning. Didn't offer me any. I stood there holding the keys. They felt heavier than they should have. "You know where you are?" Donna asked Ed without turning around. "Texas, Marfa, or near enough. 23 miles east off town, 47 miles west of nothing." She took a sip of coffee. Didn't react to what must have been terrible coffee. "Get many folks passing through. Truckers, mostly some tourists in the summer. Other things you'll see." That fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Steady buzz that got into your teeth. I'd worked under lights like that for 20 years on construction sites. Trailers, and night shifts and buildings going up in the dark. The sound used to fade into background noise after a while. Now it seemed loud. "You got family?" Donna asked. "No, ma'am." Another lie. Carol was still family. Technically, papers filed didn't mean papers signed, but Carol was in El Paso with her sister, and I was here. And the distance between those 2 points felt like more than 300 meters. Donna turned and looked at me again with those dark eyes that didn't blink. Good. Family complicates things. She walked past me, toward the door, stopped with her hand on the glass. Shift starts at 9 o'clock. Don't leave the building between 9 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Don't matter what you hear, or what you see outside. You stay inside. Their voice hadn't changed. Same, flat tone she'd used to tell me about the pay and the cot. Someone comes in and asks for something we don't carry. You tell them we're out. Don't offer to order it. Don't suggest substitutes. Just say we're out and leave it at that. Yes, ma'am. Someone tries to pay with anything except cash or card. You don't take it. I don't care what they offer. All right. And if someone comes in, you call me. Numbers on the wall, by the phone. Don't ask them what happened. Don't offer first aid. Just call me. I waited for her to say she was joking. She didn't. You understand? Yes, ma'am. Donna pushed open the door. The bells attached to it. Bright sound in the quiet. Good. I'll be back at 9 o'clock. She walked to a truck parked each on side of the building I hadn't noticed before. Old Chevy, white paint turned yellow. Started it up and drove off down the highway heading west. Taillights disappearing into the darkness. I stood in the doorway and watched her go. The desert stretched out in every direction. No lights except the station. No cars on the road. No sound except the wind moving through the scrub and that fluorescent hum behind me. 3 months ago I'd had a house. Small place on the east side of El Paso. 3 bedrooms. Mortgage I could almost afford when work was steady. Carol and I had lived there for 8 years. Not enough to make it feel permanent, but enough that I had stopped thinking about leaving. Foreclosure notice came on a Tuesday. Same day. My crew boss told me the company was shutting down the project. Budget cuts, economy, all those words mean you're done, but make it sound like it's nobody's fault. Carol's lawyer called that Friday. Funny how everything falls apart at once. Like the universe waits until you're already down before it really starts kicking. I'd spent 3 months driving, staying in the truck, picking up day labor when I could find it, moving west because west was away from El Paso and away felt right. 8 when I had money, didn't when I didn't. Lost 30 pounds and stopped looking in mirrors. The cert had swallowed me somewhere around Fort Stockton. That's when I stopped thinking about where I was going and just drove. Empty highway, empty land, empty sky, everything the same color brown. After a while, it felt like I wasn't moving at all, just sitting still while the world scrolled past the windows. Then Thea Texaco, sign flickering in the darkness. Help wanted in block letters. I'd stopped because stopping was easier than deciding where to go next. Now I had keys in my hand and a job PT less than minimum wage and a boss who'd given me rules about bleeding customers without blinking. I went back inside, let the door swing shut behind me. The bells jangled again. The hot dogs on the roller grill were shriveled and brown. Probably been there since lunch. I ate 2 of them standing at the counter. Didn't bother with a bun or condiments. Just meat that tasted like salt and grease and chemicals. Best thing I'd eaten in a week. 9 o'clock came. Donna pulled up right as the clock hit the hour. She came in and locked the door behind her. Flipped the sign from open to closed. Then unlocked it again. Door stays unlocked, she said, but the sign says closed. Keeps out the regular folk. What about the irregular folk? They don't care what the sign says. She took her position behind the counter. I stood off to the side. And Watts, the station settled into nighttime quiet. Fluorescent, humanthetic, of the clock, and nothing else. 10 minutes past 20. Then headlights, and highway. A truck pulled in, big rig, 18-wheeler, no company markings. It parked by the diesel pump and the driver got out. Tall man, heavy, build, wearing a trucker cap. He came inside and nodded at Donna. Evening, Stephen, she said. He grabbed a coffee and a prepackaged sandwich from the cooler. Paid cash, left normal transaction. Nothing particular about it. Another hour, another truck, different driver, same routine. Midnight came and went. At 1:15, a sedan pulled up. Ford or Honda, dark blue, maybe 10 years old. A woman got out. She moved wrong. Couldn't put my finger on it at first, then realized her joints bent at angles that weren't quite right. Like her elbows had an extra hinge. She came inside and the temperature dropped 5. Donna didn't react. Help you. Cigarettes, the woman said. Her voice sounded normal. If everything else about her didn't, what brand? Surprised me. We're out, Donna said. The woman smiled. Too many teeth. Of course you are. Shalift got back in her Honda, drove away. I'd stopped breathing sometime during an exchange. Started again when the taillights disappeared. What the hell? Don't, Donna said. Don't task. Don't think about it. Just follow the rules. My hands were shaking. I shoved them in my pockets. 3 more hours passed. Normal customers, truckers, and one old man in a pickup who bought lottery tickets and beef jerky. Then dawn started breaking in the east, turning the sky from black to gray to pale blue. 6 o'clock. Donna unlocked the register and pulled out a cash box. "You did fine," she said. "Come back tonight at 9 o'clock. What was that? The woman, with the particular customer. She counted out bills without looking up. "You'll see more different ones. Just remember the rules, and you'll be fine." "And if I don't?" Donna's hand stopped. She looked up at me with those dark eyes. "Seen too much. Last man who worked here was named Gavin Reyes. Hadn't follow the rules. We found pieces of him scattered across 3 counties." She went back to counting money. I stood there with the keys in my pocket and $11 in my wallet and no idea what I just agreed to. But I didn't leave. Didn't ask more questions. Didn't do anything except nod and say I'd be back at 9 o'clock because I had nowhere else to go. And that made all the difference. A laminated card sat taped to the inside of the register drawer. I found it on my 11th night when the cash got stuck and I had to pull the whole thing out to shake loose a couple bills that had wedged themselves against the back corner. Just a rectangle of yellowed plastic about the size of a postcard. Someone had typed 7 rules on what looked like actual typewriter paper before sealing it up. The font had that uneven quality you get from keys striking through a ribbon, some letters darker than others. The E sat slightly higher than the rest of the text. I read through them once, standing there with the drawer half open and $43 in small bills scattered across the counter. Rule 1. If a bride asks for gas, activate a pump she requests, regardless of what the cameras show. Rule 2. The man in the yellow rain slicker will ask for directions to Highway 90. Tell him you don't know. Do not look at his hands. It went on that way. Specific, detailed, the kind of thing someone spent time on. My first thought was Gavin, the guy who'd worked here before me. The one Consul mentioned that first night. Probably got bored during the graveyard shift and decided to mess with whoever came next. I'd done worse to kill time when I was working construction. We once convinced a new kid the site foreman was the governor's nephew and he had to call him "Sir" for 3 weeks straight before someone cracked a tape the card back where I'd found it and finished counting out the drawer. Forgot about it within the hour. Should have paid more attention. The automatic door slid open at 12:03. I knew the exact time because I had just checked my phone. Still had 4.5 hours left on the shift. Still had half a thermos of coffee that had gone lukewarm. Still had nobody on the road outside except the occasional Sima blowing past without stopping. The doors opened, smooth and quiet. Didn't make the little chime they were supposed to make when the sensors caught movement, just a pinned. She walked through wearing a wedding dress. Full thing, not some courthouse outfit or simple white number. This was the kind with layers. The skirt took up half the doorway, all that fabric bunched and flowing around her legs as she moved. Lace sleeves that went down to her wrists. A train that dragged behind her across the tile floor. The hem was stained dark and wet. Not mud, not dirt, something thicker. It didn't flake or crack as she walked, just stayed wet, leaving a faint trail across the floor that glistened under the fluorescent lights. I stood behind the counter with my hand still on my phone. She stopped about 10 feet from the register. Didn't look around, didn't seem surprised or lost, or any of the things you'd expect from someone wandering into a gas station in the middle of nowhere wearing a wedding dress at midnight. "Pump 3, she said. Her voice sounded normal, flat, maybe tired, but nothing wrong with it. Nothing that would have made me nervous. 5, just heard it over the phone. "Sure," I said. "How much?" "Just turn it on." He glanced at the security monitors mounted above the cigarette display. 4 screens showing different angles of lot. The pump sat there in grainy black and white, all of them empty. No cars, no movement, nothing except the wind pushing a plastic bag across the concrete. Pump 3 showed the same as others. Nobody standing there, nobody waiting. I turned back to tell her the system must be glitching, that maybe she should pull her car around first, and then IDHE was standing right there, right at the counter, inches away. I hadn't heard her move. I hadn't seen her cross the space between where she'd been standing and where she was now. The dress de Russell, her shoes. I couldn't even see her shoes under all that fabric. Didn't make a sound. Close enough that I could smell her something sweet and rotten ath. Same time, flowers left too long in a vase. The security mirror mounted en trois behind me showed the empty store. The counter, the displays, the front doors standing open to the darkness outside. No woman in a wedding dress, no customer. All. My hand found the edge of the counter. Gripped it. The laminate felt solid and real under my palm, and I needed that because nothing else did. "Pump 3, she said again. The card thought hit me clean and sharp. That stupid, laminated card taped inside the register drawer, with its typewriter font and its 7 rules I dismissed as a prank. Rule 1. If a bride asks for gas, activate the pump she requests, regardless of what the cameras show. My other hand moved without me telling it to. Reached under the counter, found Thibaton, 4 pump 3. The old manual override that Donna had shown me the first night, the one she said only worked when the computer system went down. I pressed it, my fingers shook, actually shook, trembling against the plastic button hard enough that I had to push twice before it clicked. The woman smiled. Rows of teeth. Too many rows. They seemed to multiply as I watched, shifting and rearranging themselves behind her lips. The front ones looked normal enough, human, but behind those, more teeth, and behind those, even more. All the way back, into darkness that shouldn't have fit inside a person's mouth. I couldn't stop staring. She held the smile for 3 seconds, maybe 4, long enough that I stopped breathing. Long enough that the fluorescent light started to hum louder. Or maybe my ears were just focusing on something, anything other than what I was seeing. Then she turned. The dress moved with her, all that fabric swirling and settling as she walked back toward the doors. The train dragged across the tile, left that samwet trail, dark and glistening. She stepped through the doorway and into the darkness outside. The doors slid, shut behind her. The chime did. I stood there, didn't move. Couldn't move. The monitor for pump 3 showed nobody. Still empty, still unused. But the meter was running. I could see it on the screen above the register. The digital readout that tracked every pump. Numbers climbing, gallons ticking up, dollar amount rising. $10, 15. Vinci, new card, a visible customer, just numbers going up while I watched. $30, 40. My hand was still gripping. Thickener knuckles gone white. I made myself let go. Made myself breathe. $50.55. The pump kept running. Steady. No hesitation. Like someone was actually out there filling an actual tank in an actual car. I just couldn't see. $60.6265. The meter stopped at $66. 60 exactly. Not 6,658 or 6663, not a round number someone might have prepaid for. $6,660. We're out, Donna said. The woman smiled. Too many teeth. Of course you are. Shalift got back in her Honda, drove away. I'd stopped breathing sometime during an exchange. Started again when the taillights disappeared. What the hell? Don't, Donna said. Don't task. Don't think about it. Just follow the rules. My hands were shaking. I shoved them in my pockets. 3 more hours passed. Normal customers, truckers, and one old man in a pickup who bought lottery tickets and beef jerky. Then dawn started breaking in the east, turning the sky from black to gray to pale blue. 6 o'clock. Donna unlocked the register and pulled out a cash box. You did fine, she said. Come back tonight at 9 o'clock. What was that? The woman, with the particular customer. She counted out bills without looking up. You'll see more different ones. Just remember the rules, and you'll be fine. And if I don't, Donna's hand stopped. She looked up at me with those dark eyes. Seen too much. Last man who worked here was named Gavin Reyes. Hadn't follow the rules. We found pieces of him scattered across 3 counties. She went back to counting money. I stood there with the keys in my pocket and $11 in my wallet and no idea what I just agreed to. But I didn't leave. Didn't ask more questions. Didn't do anything except nod and say I'd be back at 9 o'clock because I had nowhere else to go. And that made all the difference. The laminated card sat taped to the inside of the register drawer. I found it on my 11th night when the cash got stuck and I had to pull the whole thing out to shake loose a couple bills that had wedged themselves against the back corner. Just a rectangle of yellowed plastic about the size of a postcard. Someone had typed 7 rules on what looked like actual typewriter paper before sealing it up. The font had that uneven quality you get from keys striking through a ribbon, some letters darker than others. The E sat slightly higher than the rest of the text. I read through them once, standing there with the drawer half open and $43 in small bills scattered across the counter. Rule 1. If a bride asks for gas, activate a pump she requests, regardless of what the cameras show. Rule 2. The man the yellow rain slicker will ask for directions to Highway 90. Tell him you don't know. Do not look at his hands. It went on that way. Specific, detailed, the kind of thing someone spent time on. My first thought was Gavin, the guy who'd worked here before me. The one Consul mentioned that first night. Probably got bored during the graveyard shift and decided to mess with whoever came next. I'd done worse to kill time when I was working construction. We once convinced a new kid the site foreman was the governor's nephew and he had to call him. Sir, for 3 weeks straight before someone cracked. I taped the card back where I'd found it and finished counting out the drawer. Forgot about it within the hour. Should have paid more attention. The automatic door slid open at 12:03. I knew the exact time because I had just checked my phone. Still had 4.5 hours left on the shift. Still had half a thermos of coffee that had gone lukewarm. Still had nobody on the road outside except the occasional Sima blowing past without stopping. The doors opened, smooth and quiet. Didn't make the little chime they were supposed to make when the sensors caught movement, just a pinned. She walked through wearing a wedding dress. Full thing, not some courthouse outfit or simple white number. This was the kind with layers. The skirt took up half the doorway, all that fabric bunched and flowing around her legs as she moved. Lace sleeves that went down to her wrists. A train, that dragged behind her across the tile floor. The hem was stained dark and wet. Not mud, not dirt, something thicker. It didn't flake or crack as she walked, just stayed wet, leaving a faint trail across the floor that glistened under the fluorescent lights. I stood behind the counter with my hand still on my phone. She stopped about 10 feet from the register. Didn't look around, didn't seem surprised or lost, or any of the things you'd expect from someone wandering into a gas station in the middle of nowhere wearing a wedding dress at midnight. Pump 3, she said. Her voice sounded normal, flat, maybe tired, but nothing wrong with it. Nothing that would have made me nervous. 5, just heard it over the phone. Sure, I said. How much? Just turn it on. He glanced at the security monitors, mounted above the cigarette display. 4 screens showing different angles of lot. The pump sat there in grainy black and white, all of them empty. No cars, no movement, nothing except the wind pushing a plastic bag across the concrete. Pump 3 showed the same as others. Nobody standing there, nobody waiting. I turned back to tell her the system must be glitching, that maybe she should pull her car around. First and then IDHE was standing right there, right at the counter, inches away. I hadn't heard her move. I hadn't seen her cross the space between where she'd been standing and where she was now. The dress deed, Russell, her shoes. I couldn't even see her shoes under all that fabric. Didn't make a sound. Close enough that I could smell her something sweet and rotten ath. Same time, flowers left too long in a vase. The security mirror mounted en trois behind me showed the empty store. The counter, the displays, the front doors standing open to the darkness outside. No woman in a wedding dress, no customer. All. My hand found the edge of the counter. Gripped it. The laminate felt solid and real under my palm, and I needed that because nothing else did. Pump 3, she said again. The card. The thought hit me clean and sharp. That stupid, laminated card taped inside the register drawer with its typewriter font and its 7 rules I dismissed as a prank. Rule 1. If a bride asks for gas, activate the pump she requests, regardless of what the cameras show. My other hand moved without me telling it to. Reached under the counter, found Thibaton, 4 Pump 3. The old manual override that Donna had shown me the first night, the one she said only worked when the computer system went down. I pressed it. My fingers shook, actually shook, trembling against the plastic button hard enough that I had to push twice before it clicked. The woman smiled. Rows of teeth. Too many rows. They seemed to multiply as I watched, shifting and rearranging themselves behind her lips. The front ones looked normal enough, human, but behind those, more teeth, and behind those, even more. All the way back, into darkness that shouldn't have fit inside a person's mouth. I couldn't stop staring. She held the smile for 3 seconds, maybe 4, long enough that I stopped breathing. Long enough that the fluorescent light started to hum louder. Or maybe my ears were just focusing on something, anything other than what I was seeing. Then she turned. The dress moved with her, all that fabric swirling and settling as she walked back toward the doors. The train dragged across the tile, left that samwet trail, dark and glistening. She stepped through the doorway and into the darkness outside. The doors slid, shut behind her. The chime did. I stood there, didn't move. Couldn't move. The monitor for Pump 3 showed nobody. Still empty, still unused. But the meter was running. I could see it on the screen above the register. The digital readout that tracked every pump. Numbers climbing, gallons ticking up, dollar amount rising. $10, 15. Vinci, new card, no visible customer, just numbers going up while I watched. $30, 40. My hand was still gripping. Thickener knuckles gone white. I made myself let go. Made myself breathe. $50.55. The pump kept running. Steady. No hesitation. Like someone was actually out there filling an actual tank in an actual car. I just couldn't see. $60.6265. The meter stopped at $66. 60 exactly. Not 6,658 or 6663, not a round number someone might have prepaid for. $6,660. Precise and deliberate and wrong in a way that made my chest go tight. I pulled the register drawer open. Had to yank it twice because my hands were still shaking. The laminated card sat there taped to the bottom. Yellowed plastic, faded typewriter font. 7 rules that weren't a prank at all. The lights hummed above me. The coffee sat cold in my thermos. The wet trail across the floor was already starting to fade, evaporating into nothing under the fluorescent glare, and I understood with the kind of cold certainty that settles in your bones and doesn't leave that everything on that card was real. That Stephen Quinn's rig rolled in at 217 on my 9th night. I'd been working there long enough by then to recognize the diesel rattle of his Peterbilt before he swung into the lot. Headlights scudding through the dark and sweeping across the pumps. He filled up at number 8. Always number 3. Never varied. I've watched him through the window. Big guy with a trucker's gut and a worn flannel shirt that had seen better days. Balding on top. Watt Waslift. Going gray around the edges. He took his time with the pump, checking his tires while the diesel flowed. The bell above the door jangled when he came in. Evening, he said. Loud voice. Friendly. The kind of guy who'd talk your ear off if you let him. Evening. He grabbed the coffee from the machine by the drink cooler. One of those large cups. Filled it nearly to the brim. Added 4 sugars and 3 creamers. Stirred it with one of the wooden sticks. The whole routine took maybe 40 seconds, all of it familiar by now. He'd been stopping here for years, Donna had told me. Regular as clockwork. On his road between Abilene and El Paso. Someone's been knocking in your men's room, he said, walking up to the counter. I looked at the clock on August 217. Been going on for 10 minutes at least. Stephen continued. He set the coffee down, pulled out his wallet. Steady knocking, you know? Figured you'd want to know someone stuck in there? The laminated card sat in my back pocket. I had taken to carrying it with me, though I had Rule 4 memorized by then. Had them all memorized. Truth be told, Donut opened the bathroom doors between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., regardless of any sounds or requests for help. Plumbing's broken, I said. Stephen raised his eyebrows. Sounded like knockin' tome. Real, deliberate like old pipes. I rang up his diesel, my hand steady on the keys. They bang when the pressure builds up. Whole system's shot to hell. Huh? He handed me 2 20s. Could have sworn it was someone knocking. Had a rhythm to it, you know? I made change, counting it out into his palm. Didn't look toward the way where the bathrooms were. Didn't let my eyes drift that direction at all. Happens most nights, I said. Get to it. After a while, Stephen pocketed the bills, left the coins in the little tray by the register. Al Weiss did that. Well, if you say so, just thought I'd mention it. I appreciate it. He took his coffee and headed for the door. The bell jangled again. And then it was just the hum of the fluorescent lights and the low drone of the drink coolers and the knocking. I heard it now, faint but distinct, coming from the men's room just past the chips display and the magazine rack. Steady, rhythmic. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. Knock, knock, knock. The clock read 218. 42 minutes to go. I tried to focus on the paperwork Donna had left. For me, inventory sheets mostly, counting cigarette cartons and logging them in the binder she kept under the register. My handwriting looked shaky on the page. Numbers wobbling. Knock, knock. It didn't sound anything like pipes. Stephen had been right about that. I set down my pen. My hands wanted to shake, but I kept them flat on the counter, pressing down until the form mica felt solid and real under my palms. Rule 4 was clear. No exceptions, no qualifications. Just the instruction, plain and simple. Knock, knock. Someone could actually be stuck in there, I thought. Could be a real person would lock themselves in somehow? Who needed help? Could be, but I'd seen the smudge on the window, watched it fade into nothing, and I knew in the part of me that had stopped questioning things after Carol left and the bank took the house and the job street up, that the rules existed for a reason. Knock, knock. 23 minutes now. The sound didn't waver, didn't change tempo, just that same steady pattern over and over. I picked up the pen again. Marlboro Reds, 14 cartons. Marlboro Lights, 11 cartons. My handwriting had steadied some, or maybe I just stopped caring what it looked like. Then the knocking changed. Not the rhythm that stayed the same, but the intensity, harder now, more insistent, the kind of knocking that rattled the door in its frame, that you could feel through Theffler if you paid attention. I set the pen down again. Knock, knock, knock. My chest felt tight. I tried to breathe slow even, but each impact seemed to hit somewhere behind my sternum. Knock, knock, knock. It was just a door, just a bathroom, door on the gas station off Route 10. But standing there behind the counter, listening to that sound echo through the empty store, it felt like the only door in the world that mattered. What if it truly was someone? What if some kid had wandered in while I was restocking the cooler, had locked the door behind them, and now couldn't get out? Knock, knock, knock. The rule didn't say, we didn't explain, just stated the restriction and left the rest to fear or whatever kept you following instructions. I walked to the end of the counter, stood there looking down Thessered hallway toward the bathroom doors. Men's room on the left, women's on the right. The doors were identical, both painted that industrial beige that every public bathroom seemed to use. Knock, knock. My feet wanted to move forward. Every instinct I had, everything I'd been raised to believe about helping people who needed it, pushed me toward that door. I took one step, knock, then another. The clock on the wall above the coffee machine read 2 minutes, 34 seconds, and 26 milliseconds minutes left. I could wait it out, could go back to the counter and finish it inventory and pretend I didn't hear anything. Knock, knock, knock. But what teeth the pounding intensified, not knocking anymore, but full impacts like Simeone throwing their whole body against the door. The sound crashed through the store, violent and desperate. Bang, bang, bang. I froze 3 steps from the hallway. Bang, bang, bang. The door shook visibly now. I could see it rattling on its hinges, the beige paint trembling with each impact. My resolve cracked with every hit, splintered. Whatever was in there, whoever was in there, they needed out. Needed help? And I was standing here doing nothing because of some laminated card and a boss who'd barely explained anything except that the rules mattered. Bang, bang, bang. I took another step. Then the sound stopped. Not gradually, not fading or just gone. Cut off mid-impact like someone had flipped a switch. Thessalence felt wrong. Heavier than silence should be. It pressed against my eardrums, made me aware of my own breathing. The thud of my pulse and myth. I stood there, one hand gripping the edge of the chip display, and waited. Nothing. The clock read 2:41, 19 minutes. I didn't move, didn't go forward, didn't go back. Just stood there listening to the absence of sound, to the hum of the coolers, and the buzz of the lights and my own heart hammering against my ribs. At 3:01, I walked down the hallway. The men's room door sat quiet in its frame. No damage. No marks. I pushed it open slow, half expecting something to lunge out at me. The bathroom was empty. One stall, one urinal, one sink. Fluorescent light overhead, the kind that made your skin look gray. Tile floor, crack it in, the corners, grout gone, dark with age. And in the sink, a shoe, small, child-sized, red canvas, with white rubber trim and laces that had been tied in double knots. Water dripped from it, steady drops that pinged against the porcelain. The pooling liquid looked clear at first, but when I stepped closer, I saw it had a tint to it. Faint pink, almost rust-cold. I leaned in. The smell hit me before I processed what I was seeing. Copper and salt. The sharp metallic temps of blood mixed with something else, something organic and wrong, like seawater, but deeper, darker. The shoe sat there dripping, and I understood, not through logic or reasoning, but through the same cold certainty that had settled into me when the smudge disappeared. That something had been in here, something that knocked and pounded and wanted me to open the door, something that had a child's voice. Maybe, or a child's fear, would ever work to make matter in the handle. I stared at the shoe, at the water, not water, pooling in this sink basin, at the double-knotted laces. My hands started shaking. I bucked out off the bathroom, let the door swing shut on its own, walked back to the counter on legs that didn't feel quite steady. The inventory sheets still sat where I'd left them. Pen resting across the middle line, my handwriting visible in blue ink. Marlboro Red's 14 cartons. I picked up the pen but couldn't make my hand work properly. The shaking had spread up my arms, into my shoulders. Is it down again? The shoe was still in there, still dripping. I wondered what would have happened if I'd opened the door. If I'd turned the handle at 235, at 240, at 259, would something have come out? Would I have been pulled in? Would there have been more then? Just a shoe left behind. My hands trembled against the counter, and I didn't try to stop them. Just stood there, in the fluorescent glare, and the humming silence. Understanding that the rules weren't suggestions. They were the only things keeping me on the right side of that door. The clock read 3:33 when he walked in. I'd been staring at nothing in particular. Just watching the empty lot through glass, stirred with bug guts and dust. Moonless night, the kind of dark that presses against the windows and makes us fluorescent. Lights inside feel like the only thing holding back the weight of it all. Didn't hear a car pull up, didn't hear an engine, or footsteps, or the door chime. Just looked up, and who was there, standing on the other side of the counter in a black suit so clean it looked wrong. Like it had been pulled fresh from a package 5 seconds ago. Every crease sharp enough to draw blood. He smiled at me. My stomach went cold before my brain caught up to why. His arm moved, reaching up to adjust his collar or scratch his neck. Some normal gesture, but the elbow bent backward, Not a little. Not the way a joint sometimes hyperextends. If you're dull, it folded the wrong direction entirely, hinging out at an angle that made my teeth clench and my throat tighten. The wrist followed, rotating in a slaw circle that should have snapped bone. I looked down at the counter, forced my eyes to fix on the scratched laminate surface on the faded lottery ticket. Own anything except the thing wearing that suit. Cigarettes, please. His voice sounded normal, pleasant, even the kind of tone you'd use ordering coffee. I reached for the Marlboro, behind me, hand already moving. Muscle memory from 2 weeks of selling the same brands to the same truckers. Thing nearly touched the carton before IL-6 slammed into my head with the force of a physical blow. Never sell tobacco products between 3 and 4 a.m., regardless of how the customer asks. My hand stopped, hung there in empty air for a second that stretched too long. Sorry, the word came out steady. Don't know how. We're out. The smile widened. It kept widening past where a normal mouth would stop, stretching toward his ears, and a slow crawl that pulled his face into something that wasn't a face anymore. Just skin and teeth, arranged in the rough shape of human features. Are you absolutely certain? The lights, not the gentle dimming I'd seen before. This was violent, rapid strabing that turned the store into snapshots of darkness and harsh, white glare. On, off, on, off. My shadow jerked across the wall behind me in underscore movements. Every instinct I had screamed to change my answer, togue him in whatever he wanted, and make him leave. I gripped the edge of the counter, felt laminate dig into my palms. Yeah, my voice didn't shake. Smell miracle, no tobacco in stock. His head tilted. The movement was smooth, butt-wrung, rotating just a few degrees further than necks are meant to turn. Those two wide eyes stayed, locked on men and blinking, reflecting the strobing lights in a way that made them look flat and depthless. I see. The lights went insane. Flickering so fast, the whole store turned into a strobe effect. Everything reduced to frozen moments of illumination, separated by black gaps. In one flash, he stood at the counter. In the next, his hand had moved to rest on the surface. In the next, his finger shad elongated, stretched into something with too many knuckles. I didn't look away, didn't blink, just kept my eyes on his, and repeated myself. We don't have any. His form stuttered. That's the only word for it. Like watching a video buffer, his whole body skipping frames. He stood upright, then hunched forward, then upright, again without any movement between the positions. The black suit flickered at the edges, going translucent for a fraction of a second, before snapping back to solid. Then he was gone, not walking away, not moving toward the door, just absent. The space where he'd stood was empty, and the lights stopped their seizure. Settling back into their normal fluorescent hum, I stood there for a long time, breathing, listening to my pulse hammer in my ears. The clock read 3:34. Took me 2 hours to check the security footage. Had to wait until my hands stopped shaking enough to work the computer in the back office. And even then, I fumbled through honest instructions, written on a grease-stained notepad taped to the monitor 3 times before I got it right. Founded timestamp. 3:33 a.m. The footage showed him standing at the counter, motionless, perfectly still in that black suit with his hands resting on the laminate, head tilted at that wrong angle. I wasn't in frame. The camera covered the register ear, but not the space behind it where I'd been standing. He didn't move, not once, just stood there, frozen, while that timestamp ticked forward. 334, 335, 340. At 4:20 exactly, he ceased to exist. One frame he was there. The next showed empty air. 47 minutes. I'd looked away maybe 5 seconds after he disappeared. Turned to check the cigarette stock with shaking hands, confirming what I already knew. 3 cartons of Marlos sat on the shelf, plus 2 of Camels and 1 of American Spirits. 5 seconds in my time, for 7 minutes on the recording. Donna came by during my 3rd week, Thursday afternoon. Sun beating down, on the cracked asphalt, and making the air shimmer in waves that blurred the distant mountains. I was restocking the cooler when her truck pulled up. Same ancient Chevy she'd been driving since before I was born probably. Primer gray with rust eating through the wheel wells. She came inside without buying anything. Just stood by the counter while I finished loading bottles of Gatora Diono the shelf, her weathered hands resting on her hips. You're still here? Wasn't a question. I straightened up, wiping condensate off my palms onto my jeans. Yeah. She nodded slowly, pulled a pack of gum from the supply, and set exact change on the counter. Even though we both knew she hadn't come in for gum. Had a feeling? You might be. Her dark eyes studied my face. You got that look Gavin had after his first month? For the one that says, you've seen it and you're not running? Gavin, the name she'd mentioned when she hired me, her predecessor? What happened to him? Donna unwrapped a piece of gum with deliberate slowness, folding the foil into a tiny square before answering. Broke Rule 3. She said it the same way you'd mention someone forgetting to lock up. Factual, distant. Counted the register money out loud during his shift. 437, he said. Counted every bill and coin, talking to himself the whole time like he always did. My mouth went dry. They found him the next morning when I came in for my shift. She chewed the gum twice, jaw working in a steady rhythm. Tongue was gone, cut out, clean, no blood. They'd arranged it on the counter in neat stacks. Looked just like bills, the way they'd sliced and folded it. Even got the count right, 437 pieces. I didn't say anything. COULDN, single quotes T. Gavin worked here 11 years. Donna's voice stayed level, but something mauvais behind her eyes. Old grief, maybe, or just exhaustion, got comfortable. Started thinking the rules were suggestions instead of what they are. She met my gaze. They're not suggestions, Mark, I know. Dia, she tilted her head slightly. Because knowing and understanding are different things. You can read those rules 1,000 times. Memorize every word, but until you've stood there at 3 a.m. with something wrong, asking for tobacco, until you felt how bad you want to, just give in and make it go away. She trailed off. That's when you understand. The cooler hummed behind me. A semi rolled past on the highway. Engine noise a-dopplering into silence. The Mara lights, I said. What are they really? Donna was quiet for a long moment, chewed her gum, stared out the window at the heat, shimmer, and empty desert. Eyes, she finally said, watching from out there in the dark, been watching long before this station got built. Long before the highway, long before any office. She turned back to me. The rules aren't about the station, Mark. They're about keeping those eyes looking somewhere else, or about not drawing attention to yourself when you're thinly light for 60 miles. She headed for the door. You did good, she said without looking back with the cigarettes. Gavin would have caved, Fedor chimed as she pushed it open, but don't get comfortable. That's what killed him in the end. Then she was gone, truck kicking up dust as she pulled back onto the empty highway. I stood there in the fluorescent hum and the cooler's rattle. Understanding settling into my bones. With cold certainty, the rules weren't protection. They were camouflage. And out there in the desert, tender skies so big and black, they swallowed everything. Those lights they called atmospheric phenomena were still watching, waiting for someone to slip, waiting for the dark to notice. 29 nights. I'd made it through 29 nights without screwing up. 29 shifts of watching the dark and following those rules on the laminated card. Keeping my head down and my hands clean. I'd turned away the bride and her impossible dress. I'd mopped blood from the bathroom floor without asking questions. I'd stood my ground when the man in the charcoal suit tried to buy things that didn't exist. 29 nights, and I'd figured it out. The exhaustion had been building for days. Not the normal kind you shake off with coffee and determination. The kind that settles into your bones and makes your thoughts move through mud. I'd been sleeping in the truck most days, parked behind the station where the sun turned the cab into an oven by noon. 4, maybe 5 hours at a stretch before the heat or the dreams woke me up. Then I'd lie there, staring at the truck's stained ceiling, counting hours until my next shift started. Should have known better, should have recognized the signs. The clock, read 1:47. When she walked in, little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Yellow sundress, the kind with white flowers embroidered along the hem. Clean white sneakers that squeaked against the tile floor. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail tied, with a yellow ribbon that matched the dress exactly. She looked normal. That was the problem. After weeks of watching impossible things drift through that station, Normo felt safe. Normo felt like a relief. A kid in a yellow dress didn't register as danger. Not the way Thebrid had. Not the way that Sudaman's too perfect smile had made my skin crawl. Just looked like someone's daughter who'd gotten separated from her parents. Maybe you wandered away from a car while they were filling up, except there weren't any cars in the lot. Maybe you walked from somewhere down the highway, except the nearest houses were miles away and it was almost 2 o'clock in the morning. I didn't think about it. Those things, too tired to think, too worn down to question. She walked up to the counter with small, careful steps, stopped right in front of the registrant, looked up at me with dark eyes that caught the fluorescent light wrong, reflected it back in a way that made Mr. Mac turn just slightly. Just enough that I should have paid attention. Excuse me, Mr. Her voice was soft, polite, the kind of careful politeness kids use with adults they don't know. Can I use your telephone? My hand was already reaching for the cordless behind the counter before she finished asking. Automatic, helpful? The same response I'd have given anyone back when I was still a person who did favors for strangers. Back before this place taught me that favors got you killed. I picked up the phone and held it out to her across the counter. She took it with boss hands, small fingers wrapping around the plastic. Nails painted thism yellow as her dress, Clean hands. A child's hands. I watched her lift it to her ear and start pressing buttons. So that's when my brain finally caught up. That's when the exhaustion cleared just enough for the wrongness to hit me. I turned toward the register, toward the drawer where that laminated card sat taped inside. My hands moved on their own, pulling it open, reaching for the yellowed plastic rule. 7 stared back at me in that neat typewriter text. Do not allow children to touch anything behind the counter. There are no children. The words hit me like cold water. I looked up. The girl was still dialing, her finger pressing buttons in a rhythm that went on too long. 7 digits. 8, 10, 15, 20. She kept pressing in. The phone kept accepting input, beeping softly with each press, and the number she was calling couldn't exist because no number needed that many digits. Wait, I started to say. She stopped pressing buttons, held the phone to her ear, waited. Then someone answered. I couldn't hear the voice on the other end, but I saw her face change, saw her smile, saw her mouth open to speak. The language came out wasn't anything human. I don't know how else to describe it. The sounds didn't fit together, didn't follow any pattern my brain could process. Consonants that scraped against my eardrums. Vowels that seemed to come from somewhere behind her instead of from her mouth. Words, if they were words, that made the air feel heavier. My nose started bleeding. Felt it before? I saw it. Warm wetness on my upper lip, copper taste at the back of my throat. I touched my face and my fingers came away red. Blood dripped onto the counter, between us. Dark drops against the scratched laminate. The girl kept talking. She wasn't looking at me anymore. Her attention was completely on the conversation on whoever or whatever was listening on the other end of that impossible number. She spoke in that wrong language for what felt like hours, but it was probably 30 seconds, maybe less. I just stood there, couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except watch and bleed and understand that I'd made a mistake that couldn't be unmade. She finished talking, said something fat, had been goodbye in whatever tongue that was, lowered the phone from her ear, and pressed a button to end call. Then she looked at me again and smiled. Thank you, mister, she said in perfect English. That sounded obstinate after what I just heard. That was very kind. She held the phone out, tome across the counter. I took it without thinking. The plastic felt wrong in my hand, too warm, too smooth. I looked down and saw the fingerprints. Bernadine, 5 perfect prints on each side where she'd held it. Not dirty, not smudged, burned. The plastic blackened and scorched like she'd held a branding iron instead of a telephone. The marks went deep, permanent. You invited us inside, the girl said, daughter. Voice was still soft, still polite. But something else lived underneath it now, something old and patient. When you gave me what I asked for, when you let me touch what belongs to this place. My mouth was too dry to answer. The station will keep you now, she continued. You're part of it, like the others before you. She turned and walked the door with those same small, careful steps, yellow dress swishing around her knees, white sneakers squeaking against the tile. I wanted to say something. Wanted to stop her, ask her what she meant, beg her to take it back, but she was already gone. Pushed through the door and walked out into the parking lot, into that massive darkness that pressed against the lights. I watched her cross the pavement and step onto the highway shoulder. Anthon, she just wasn't there anymore. Didn't fade. Didn't disappear. Just stopped existing between one step and the next. The weight of it crushed down on me all at once. 29 nights. The bride who couldn't exist. Survived whatever had happened in that bathroom that left blood on the floor. Survived the suited man who tested me with his impossible requests. I'd survived all of it. And I'd failed because I was tired. Because a child asked for help and my exhausted brain forgot that there were no children. Because I'd stopped paying attention for 30 seconds and handed over something I should have protected. I stood there behind the counter. The scorched phone still in my hand, blood drying on my upper lip. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The coolers rattled against the back wall. The clock ticked forward toward 2. Everything looked the same as it had 5 minutes ago. But something fundamental had changed. Something in the air, and the way the station felt around me. The walls seemed closer. The lights seemed dimmer. Federic outside pressed harder against the windows. The girl had said the station would keep him now. I stared at those black fingerprints burned into the plastic and understood she was right. Dawn came slow that morning, the kind that bleeds gray, across the horizon first, making everything look washed, out and tired before the sun bothers to show itself proper. I'd locked the register at 5:58. 2 minutes early maybe? But I'd followed every other rule to the letter. That shift hadn't opened. The bathroom door between 1 and 4 hadn't looked directly at the bride when she drifted through at midnight. Her dress, dragging sounds that weren't quite footsteps, hadn't asked questions when the trucker with Stephen Quinn's face, but the wrong voice had paid for diesel and bills. That smelled like burnt hair. 30 nights down. I'd kept counting my head, because writing it down felt dangerous somehow, like marking days on a cell wall. My truck sat where I'd left it. Passenger side door still dented from where Carol had backed into the mailbox 3 years ago. Before the divorce, before the bank took the house, before if everything went to underscore, and I ended up here pumping gas for ghosts and things that wore human shapes, but weren't. He pulled the keys from my pocket. They felt heavier than they should have. The Ford's engine turned over once, clicked, died. I tried again, same thing. That initial catch, the promise of ignition, then nothing. Battery sounded fine. No grinding, no struggle, just a clean mechanical refusal. Check the gauge, 3/4 full. I'd filled it 2 days ago, back when I'd still thought I might need to run. Popped the hood anyway. Stood there in the growing light, looking at an engine I'd rebuilt twice with my own hands. Every belt and hose and connection exactly where it should be. Oil good, coolant good, battery terminals, clean. Nothing wrong I could see. Nothing wrong except it wouldn't start. I tried the key 4 more times, got the same empty click. That sound of something deciding not to cooperate. The morning air smelled like creosote and dust. Familiar West Texas scents that should have been comforting but just made my chest feel tight. My phone sat in the cup holder. I grabbed it, thumbed it awake. No signal, not even 1 bar. That wasn't right. I'd had tubers. Yesterday, spotty service. Sure, but enough to send a text or make a call if I really needed to. I walked toward the road, holding the phone up like some kind of desperate antenna. The screen stayed blank where the signal indicator should have been. Just that empty space, white and mocking. Moved to the other side of the lot. Nothing. Walked out past the pumps. Boots crunching on gravel. Still, nothing. The highway stretched east and west, empty in both directions. No cars, no semis, just asphalt and painted lines, disappearing into distance. I kept the phone up, watching that blank space where bars should appear. My arms started to ache. The sun crept higher, turning the sky from gray to pale blue, and my phone stayed silent and useless in my hand. Something cold settled in my stomach. Not surprise, exactly. More like a recognition. The station had kept me. That girl, with her black fingerprints, had said so. And I had seen the proof burned into plastic. But knowing something and feeling it are different things. And standing there in the empty dawn with a dead truck and no signal, I felt it. Still, I had to try. I started walking westward the highway. Figured I'd flag down the first vehicle I saw. Hitch a ride to the next town. Let Donna deal with the truck later. Let the whole goddamn place sink into the desert for all I cared. 50 yards. That's how far I got. The gravel crunched under my boots. Steady rhythm of walking. I kept my eyes on the road ahead. On the point where the asphalt met the horizon. Didn't look back. Just walked, and then the pumps were in front of me, not behind me, in front. I stopped, turned slow, checking my bearings. The station sat to my east now. Exactly where it should be if I'd been walking west. But the sun was wrong, still rising to my left instead of my right. My throat went dry. Turned around, started walking the other direction, east this time. Picked a point on the horizon, a water tower maybe 10 miles out, just visible in the morning haze. Kept my eyes on it, counted my steps, got to 215. The pumps appeared ahead of me. Some configuration, same faded Texaco sign, humming its constant electric note. The water tower sat behind me now. I'd walked a straight line. I was sure of it. No curves, no turns, just forward motion on flat desert grounds. But the station had moved. Or the space between us had folded in on itself somehow, spitting me back where I started. Tried north, tried south. Each time, same result. Walk far enough and the pumps materialized ahead. Patient hand. Inevitable. The building squatted in its pool of fluorescent light. Windows reflecting nothing but sky. The sun climbed higher. Sweat soaked through my shirt. I stopped trying after the 8th attempt. Just stood there between pumps 2 and 3, breathing hard, tasting dust and defeat. Headlights cut across the lot at 6:07. Donna's Silverado, faded red paint and a crack across the windshield she'd never bothered to fix. She pulled up near killed the engine, took her time getting out, moving with that careful stiffness of someone whose joints don't work quite right anymore. She looked at me, didn't say anything at first, just took in the scene. Me standing there sweating and my truck with its hood still up, the phone clutched in my hand. Her expression never changed. That some weary, knowing look she'd worn when she hired me. Pity mixed with something else. Resignation, maybe. Tried Tolavi, she said. Not a question. I nodded. My voice came out rough. Truck wouldn't start. No, it won't. Phone's dead. 2? No signal? No, there isn't. She walked past me toward the door, keys jingling. I followed because I didn't know what else to do. My legs felt thievy, disconnected from my brain. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed their endless song. Coffee smell hung in the air from the pot I'd brewed it for. Donna moved behind the register. That familiar territory she'd occupied for Hover many years before I showed up. She opened a drawer, not the cash drawer, a smaller one underneath. The kind meant for receipts or spare pens. Her weathered hands pulled out a photograph. Old-fashioned kind with the white border. Colors faded to that particular hue of aged film. She set it on the counter between us. I looked down. The man in the photo stood in front of the station. Sim pumps, though. The paint looked fresher. Same building, same sign. He wore different clothes, slacks, and a tucked-in shirt. Styled hair, but his fists, Jesus Christ. His face, my eyes, my nose, the same hollow cheeks, same line of jaw, not similar, identical. I picked up the photograph with shaken hands, turned it over. Someone had written on the back in faded ink, Gavin Ray, 1952. Previous night attendant, Donna said. Her voice carried that same flat certainty she used for everything. Worked here 31 years. The numbers didn't make sense. I did the math anyway. Automatic. That would make it 1983. Whence left. When you arrived, she corrected. Same day, same hour. I stared at her. I started working here 3 weeks ago. She didn't argue. Just stood there, with those dark eyes that had seen too much, watching me work through it. The station needs a night attendant, she said. Always has, always will. When it leaves, another arrives. Hasta can't sit empty after dark. My hand had gone numb. The photograph slipped from my fingers, landed face up on the counter. Gavin Reyes looked up at nothing, frozen in 1952, wearing my face. 31 years, I said. For him could be different for you, could be more, could be less. She pulled the photo back, returned it to its drawer. Depends on how well you follow the rules. And if I don't, you've seen what happens to people who don't. I had blood on the bathroom floor, screaming from the storage room. That thing that had worn Stephen Quinn's shape but had too many teeth, when it smiled, the station collected debts. I'd understood that from the beginning, from the moment I saw those rules taped inside the register drawer. But I'd thought I was just working here. Thought I could save enough to move on, find something better. Thought I had a choice. Can't leave Ice-8. Not a question anymore. No. Can't call anyone. No. Just work Ivory Night forever. Donna's expression softened just slightly. Not much, just enough that I could see that pity wasn't new. She'd felt it before. For whoever came before Gavin and whoever came before them, some debts can't be paid with money, she said. You came here with nothing. Station gave you work, gave you shelter, gave you purpose. She paused. Now, it takes its due in time. In time? She agreed. She left at 6:30. Had to, I figured. Whatever rules bound her to daylight were just as inflexible as the ones that bound me to darkness. I worked that night and the next, and the one after, that the brides still come at midnight. 3 of them now, sometimes 4, drifting through, in their impossible dresses that trail sounds instead of fabric. I don't look at them directly, don't acknowledge them, just stand behind the register and let them pass. The bathroom still knocks, between 1 and 4. That same patient rhythm. 3 beats and a pause. I don't in, sir. Don't even walk down that hallway anymore unless I have to. The lights still watch from the desert. Some nights they're distant, just pin pricks on the horizon. Other nights they press close, hovering just beyond the lot's edge, casting shadows that move wrong. I follow every rule. Don't deviate, don't improvise. Don't test the duaries, because I've seen what happens when you do. Time moves strange here. The clock on the wall still ticks, still marks hours and minutes, in its mechanical way, but they don't feel connected to anything anymore. Days blur together, nights stretch and compress. I don't know how long I've been here. Could be months, could be years. I tried counting at first, marking shifts in my head, but the numbers slipped away. Too many nights, identical to the ones before. Too many dawns that look the same. Donna still comes at 6. She never looks older, never looks younger. Just arrives with his son and leaves before it sets. Maintaining whatever daytime operations keep the station running. We don't talk. Mac don't need to. Stephen Quinn's rig still pulls in some nights. Or something we're in his shape does. I pump the diesel, take the cash, don't ask questions. The bills always smell wrong. Sometimes burnt hair, sometimes formaldehyde, sometimes nothing at all, which is worse. My truck still sits in flop. Hood closed now. I stopped trying to start it after that first morning. It's just decoration at this point. A reminder of the life I thought it'd return to. With desert stretches forever in every direction. Flat and patient. I understand now what the girl meant when she said the station would keep me. Not in a metaphoric way, not as some poetic description of addiction or habit. Literally, physically. The station keeps me the way a trap keeps a rat. The way amber keeps insects. Some debts can't be paid with money. I'd shown up with $11 and nowhere else to go, and the station had given me work, purpose, survival. Now, it takes its payment in time, and time stretches forever in the desert outside Marfa, marked only by the brides at midnight, and the knocking from the bathroom, and the lights that watch from the darkness, waiting for someone to slip, waiting for the rules to break, waiting for the rules to break, waiting for the next attendant to arrive. I work the graveyard shift. I follow every rule. And the years, however many there are, however many Thea will be, blurred together into one endless night, punctuated by fluorescent light and diesel fumes and the constant electric hum of the Texaco sign. The station needed a night attendant. It has now.